Okay, so we started Unit 6 today, or really yesterday technically, but we finished Lesson 1 and 2. Like maybe only did 2 problems from Lesson 2, but really that's all you need. Um, of course, like you can use Desmos to check your answers, but that doesn't replace the need to have to graph it by hand and calculate axis of symmetry and vertex by hand. And when I say that, I really mean like you can still use a calculator, but actually typing in the numbers to get the y value or to get the x value is what we are looking for. Yes, you could also check on Desmos by typing in the equation, but remember you don't get Desmos on your state test. So you need to be able to find it a variety of ways. But you need to be able to recognize quadratic functions by the equation or the graph. How do I know if an equation is a quadratic? What does it need to have? What makes it quadratic? What did you say, Lana? Okay, so maybe from a graph, I can see if there is a line of symmetry that can be drawn on it. That's maybe how I could tell for a quadratic. What about from the equation? Wade? If it has an x squared and nothing higher. So it could have an x squared, it could have an x to the first power, it could even have just like a random number too in there. But it can't have anything higher than x squared. Like x cubed would be something else, not quadratic. So yeah, if you want to play around with some stuff in your Desmos calculator, try having just x and then try making it x squared. You see the graph physically change. And from a straight line to like a U shape. But yeah, that's how you can tell from an equation. It has to have the x squared at least. From a graph, what shape does it have? What shape do the quadratic functions have? A U shape. Whether it's like your normal U shape or your upside down U. It never is sideways like this. It's just up or it's just down. So that's how you can tell from a graph. And then also being able to identify your axis of symmetry from a graph, it's pretty easy. It's just x equals whatever the x of your vertex is. From an equation, though, that's where you have to do the formula, which is what we've been practicing. I'm sure identifying it from the graph would be further than that. And then the vertex you find from, let's see, you find from your axis of symmetry formula, that'll give you the x of your vertex. Stop talking. And then plugging in the x of your vertex will give you your y. And that written as a coordinate will give you your vertex. Of course, if you have the graph, just kind of click on it, look at the turning point, and see what the coordinate is. So do use Desmos to check. Do not use it as a starting place. When you do your practice, I need to see the same amount of work shown that I showed you in the lesson. So this is a paper practice. You guys picked it up today, so unless you weren't here in my algebra hour, then you should have it. Evens or odds is a requirement. It's still an 80% or higher. Of course, for me, it'd be more completion when I look at it. So come show me right by my computer, just like flip the paper and I can see if it's 80% or 80% done or not. But you should be checking your answers as you go. 1 with Desmos and 2 with the key that I have taped to the wall. So it's not so you could just directly copy from or take pictures of it so that you can check your work. I am almost done updating grades for the stuff from when I was gone. So be on the lookout for that. I'll give you your papers back. Questions? Okay, this is what I'm holding you to right now, because it's what I'm gonna check tomorrow, no matter what. You can show it to me once you are 80% done with the even your office. But this is number 7 from the lesson 1 practice. So first thing you need to do, this one's just asking for axis of symmetry, vertex, and a sketch. If I need to find the axis of symmetry, what do I recommend you identify first? Okay. Max, can you tell me what A is in this one? Okay, great. Chris, can you tell me what B is? And Wade, can you tell me what C is? -5. All right, C we're not using yet, but I just want you to still be able to identify it, so it'll make your life easier later. The axis of symmetry formula you should be getting from your notes probably right now, so you have it memorized. But it always starts with x equals. And you get what x equals from plugging in your B and your A. Here's me plugging it in. I'm not trying to do anything fancy in this step. I would literally just plug it in exactly how it looks. And then clean it up after. Use a calculator if you need to. But I get -8 over 2 times -2, which is. And what does it equal when I divide these? A +2, actually. Because a negative divided by a negative. Right? So that's my axis of symmetry. And really, like, make sure you're checking along the way. Use a calculator. Do that in the calculator. Because if you mess up that, then the next part will already be wrong. Because you find your vertex by taking this x and plugging it in for the y. And then writing it as an ordered pair. So here is me plugging it in. Here's my given equation. Anywhere that there is a x, I'm going to put a +2. Everyone see how all I did was put it into where the x was. Everything else is exactly the same. And then we use a calculator for the rest. So I'm going to type that in. Let's see. All right, it is 3. All right, so that's the same thing I wrote on my paper. That's going to be the y of my vertex. Everyone good on that so far? Now for the sketch, I mean, yes, you could also type it into Desmos and jot down what you see. But what I would really like is that you knew based on the vertex what quadrant it goes in. So which quadrant does 2, 3 go in? We have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 2, 3 goes in which quadrant? Okay, good. It'd probably be around here. And based on your A, that should tell you if it opens up or down. So if A is negative, does it open up or down? Down, right? Because when negative things happen to you, right? And it's just a sketch. Right now, all I really care about is that it's in the right quadrant and it opens up the right way. Good there? Do we have other questions on anything? Why? Friendly? 9 on this one? Yeah. Okay, so same situation as before. What do I recommend you identify first? So then, Lana, what's A? Serenity, what's B? -8, and what's C? Right. -9. So always keep the sign that's in front of it. Okay, but for our axis of symmetry, plugging it into the axis of symmetry formula, this is how it should look when you plug it in. So I have a -8 over 2 times -1, and then we'll clean that up here. What happens to a -8? Becomes a positive. That's like -8 times -1. On the denominator, what's 2 times -1? -2. And when I divide that, 8 divided by -2 is, and for our axis of symmetry, we get x equals -4. Which then gives me the x of my vertex. So now I just need to find my y by plugging in my x value. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll sketch it. So here's my given equation. Anywhere that there's an x, we're going to plug in a -4. I would not try to combine any steps here. Like I would literally just write it down plugged in so that when I type it in my calculator, I just have to type that. So -4 in parentheses, -8. Okay, so same exact thing I wrote down. And my y value is 7. Everyone good? So now for the sketch, what quadrant would the vertex go in for -4, 7? I'm gonna make this look more like a 7. Good. Would be, if I was estimating, something like this. And based on my equation, my A, does it open up or down? Down. Okay, great. Because A is negative. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If this was like with graphing lines, like a coordinate plane, like with the lines, I'd expect it to be perfect, but just a sketch trainer. Good. Any other questions, Amy? 12. All right. So Amy, what's gonna be my A, B, and C for this one? It is Miss Medina. Yeah, no problem. Bye. All right, so what's the B? 2 is correct. Yes. And the C would be what? Okay, great. So then plugged into our axis of symmetry formula, Charles, what would it be plugged in if these are my A, B's, and C's? Okay. So there we go. This is what it looks like plugged in. You can use your calculator to do this part for you if you'd like, if you're not too good with the integers. Otherwise, it's -2 over -2. And class, what's -2 divided by -2? a positive 1. So my axis of symmetry for that one's a positive 1. So that means my vertex, the x of my vertex is a positive 1. The y of my vertex I get from plugging in that 1. So for work shown, all I'd expect you to have is this, showing that you plugged in a positive 1 for each x. And then just use your calculator for the rest. So when I do that, if you're getting anything other than -3, then there's something wrong with how you're typing it in. So maybe we're forgetting the parentheses. It's usually what it is if there's a mistake in typing it in. But yeah, that one's that one. Does that make sense, Amy? Okay. So then when graphing it, what quadrant would this vertex go in? Okay, good. It'd be like about here. And based on this, does it open up or down? Down. Because the A is negative once again. All right, any other questions? And side note, like you could always check it yourself. I mean, I want to see that you can do this work shown, but you can check it by typing it in the exactly how it was given to you with the X's. And if you're getting that, like if you're trying to see if your axis of symmetry is right, you should be able to type it in a different cell and it go right down the middle, like how it is here. If you click on your vertex, it should be the same thing you found for your vertex. So don't use this as a starting place, use it as a checkpoint. We might have time for one more question if anyone has one. Fill that in. So for 13, the A is -3, B is 0, and C is 0. So then in plugging it in for axis of symmetry, it looks like this, which once you clean it up, it looks like this. Sorry if I'm going too fast, but hopefully it makes sense. 0 divided by -6 is what? And so in that case, my axis of symmetry is x equals 0. So plugging in the B in the right spot, the A in the right spot, simplifying it, this is what I get. The x of my vertex is 0. And the y I get from plugging in 0 for the x. I will use a calculator just to be sure, although I think I know what the answer is, but I'll just be sure. Because why not? I get 0. All right. So 0 for the y of my vertex. So this wouldn't necessarily be any quadrant. It would be the origin. If you were graphing, that's where your vertex goes, right in the middle. And does it open up or down? Down because the A is negative. Lots of down examples today, but that's just how it happens to be. Because the A is negative. All right, I think that's all we have time for, but if you do end up having more questions, you could always ask tomorrow, probably during math lab would be more efficient.